Namaskar friends, I welcome you all back to video 7 of week 12. In this video, we'll discuss about policy integration and digital governance. We'll discuss how nations can embed forensic linguistics into cyber laws, AI regulations and security frameworks. Friends, today we'll step into the world of policy, where forensic linguistic influences lawmaking, digital governance, AI regulations, and national cyber frameworks. Friends, policy is something where technology, language, and power meet. In the world where communication has become the primary weapon in misinformation, cyber fraud, and digital manipulation, language expertise has become essential to policy design. Policymakers are realizing that regulating today's digital landscape requires understanding how people speak, write, mislead, persuade, threaten, and deceive online. Laws are written in language. Crimes are committed through language. Evidence is captured in language. Policymakers cannot regulate digital communication without understanding linguistic behavior. Friends, without linguistic insight, laws may misinterpret intent, misclassify offenses, enable over censorship, or leave loopholes for exploitation. And that's why linguistic clarity strengthens legal clarity. Friends, many digital crimes rely on linguistic actions. For example, threatening messages, impersonation scripts, romance scams, online grooming patterns, manipulative extortion, languages. Friends, these are some of the aspects where linguistic functions significantly. Policies must align with linguistic realities. For instance, recognizing grooming requires understanding emotional sequencing and discursive manipulation. Recognizing phishing requires understanding persuasive linguistic structures. Forensic linguistics informs these legislative definitions. Friends, as AI generated text becomes indisguisable from human writing, policymakers worry about fake news generated at scale, synthetic threats, automated propaganda, forged testimonies, and deepfake voice-based extortion. AI laws increasingly include provisions for detecting machine-generated content, linguistic markers, rhythmic inconsistencies, unnatural phrase repetition, semantic drift inform regulatory frameworks very specifically. In this scenario, forensic linguists help develop these detection standards. Friends, when it comes to digital platform governance, only algorithms cannot decide legality alone. The platforms like Meta, X, and YouTube rely on automated moderation, but algorithms struggle with sarcasm, code mixed language, regional idioms, contextual threats, and political metaphors. If platforms rely solely on algorithms, they risk wrongful takedowns or missed dangers. And that's why policymakers advocate hybrid systems. NLP assisted detection with human linguistic oversight is a must. And if it does, in that case, this balance ensures fairness. Governments across the world are designing misinformation laws. Without linguistic insight, these laws risk criminalizing satire, mislabeling emotional speech as incitement, confusing exaggeration with falsehood, or ignoring cultural humor. Friends, forensic linguistics help differentiate: number one, opinion from misinformation, prediction from deception, and emotion from manipulation. And at the same time, that's the reason why policy must understand the nuances of digital discourse. When it comes to hate speech regulation, friends, I believe that linguistic frameworks can improve the precision. Hate speech often uses linguistic strategies such as coded expressions, metaphorical attacks, dog whistling, indirect verifications. Policies written without linguistic input may overlook harmful subtleties or criminalize harmless speech. Linguistic analysis helps policymakers define the intent, target group, context, and harm potential. That's why effective hate speech regulation requires a linguistic foundation. Let's talk about surveillance and data protection laws by balancing rights with security. Friends, linguistic surveillance must be regulated to prevent abuse. Policy frameworks ensures that monitoring requires lawful approval. The privacy should be protected. Retention timeliness should be enforced, and citizens' rights must be respected. Countries like Europe use GDPR to protect linguistic data. India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act emphasizes transparency and purpose limitation. Forensic linguistics informs how sensitive linguistic data should be handled. Let's talk about institutional protocols. Agencies increasingly embed linguistic principles into their official protocols. And these protocols include standard formats for chat log preservation, linguistic indicators for threat classification, rules for authorship analysis, and guidelines for interpretation of slang, emojis, and multilingual text. Policy integration turns linguistic insight into operational procedures. We can take some global examples where nations already integrate linguistic policy. For example, the UK uses linguistic risk assessment frameworks in extremism cases. Europe has multilingual guidelines for hate speech analysis. The US incorporates linguistic markers in cyber threat analysis standards. If you talk about Australia, Australia integrates linguistic evidence into child protection policies. Friends, these examples help India build its own policy models. And when I see India's policy landscape, I see a powerful opportunity. India's upcoming Digital India Act and related cyber regulations create an opportunity to embed forensic linguistics directly into the national policy. And this policy includes standards for linguistic evidence, guidelines for digital authorship, frameworks for NLP assisted investigations, protections for multilingual communication rights, and ethical limitations on linguistic surveillance. Friends, I firmly believe that India can lead globally by integrating linguistic diversity into governance. Forensic linguistics contribute by drafting language clarity guidelines, advising on cyber law interpretations, helping define offenses involving communication, ensuring AI regulations respect linguistic realities, and training policymakers in linguistic nuance. Friends, policy needs scientific voices that understand human behavior through language. It's very evident that policy shapes society, and equally evident is the linguists shape the policy. Friends, thank you very much for being with me on this session. Forensic linguistics is becoming a policy tool that influences how nations regulate communication, monitor digital spaces, and protect rights. As you continue through week 12, the next video explains how institutional frameworks can formally recognize forensic linguistics as a discipline across justice systems, academia, and national governance structures. So until I catch you in the next video, stay tuned with the course. I'll catch you in the next video. Till then, thank you very much. Jai Hind.